Last night, we tore the lid off a series of oft-repeated liberal lies about President Trump's handling of the coronavirus. The pandemic's fallout, though of course extremely tragic, could have been far worse had he not shut down travel early and reopened the economy when he did. Hospital systems in a few states were stretched, but not overwhelmed. But given the Democrats' constant wailing about what Trump supposedly got wrong, we decided tonight to sketch out what the situation would have looked like had Joe Biden and the Democrats been in charge instead. First, Biden would not have banned travel from China. There's no way he would have done that. 2 months after Trump did just that, Biden was still worrying about hurting China's feelings.
Being overly dismissive or spreading misinformation is only going to hurt us and further advantage the spread of the disease. But neither should we panic or fall back on xenophobia. Labeling COVID-19 a foreign virus does not displace accountability for the misjudgments that have been taken thus far by the Trump administration.
I was worried about xenophobia, not the virus. Not only would Biden not have banned travel from China, though, he would have effectively rewarded the CCP for unleashing this plague by allowing them to continue to steal our trade secrets and take our jobs. It's clear under Biden, there'd be no tariffs and thus no Chinese concessions.
Some have said Trump's stance is a good one to counter China's influence. Would you keep the tariffs?
No, hey, look, who said Trump's idea is a good one?
No, he would get rid of the tariffs day one. A Biden presidency is a dream scenario for the CCP. And given that the WHO has been pimping for China for years, how would dealing with them, he also suggested, that help? And you know Biden wouldn't have banned travel from Europe either. Even Fauci admitted doing so saved lives. But under Biden, as under Obama, Europe's feelings on a travel ban would have been more important than what was good for Americans. Heaven forbid, can't offend the French.
Banning all travel from Europe or any other part of the world may slow it, but as we've seen, it will not stop it. And travel restrictions based on favoritism and politics rather than risk will be counterproductive.
I mean, you can't make this up. And under Biden, illegals, they'd keep pouring in. And of course, forget ramped up border enforcement under Biden at all. Even European countries like Germany locked down their borders for 3 months. But Joe would never even consider a crackdown on illegal border crossings, even during a pandemic. He'd open the ICE facilities, he'd release all detainees, and then maybe ask questions later. After all, what would Jorge Ramos say?
Trump campaigned on build that wall. Are you willing to tear that wall down?
No, there will not be another foot of wall constructed on my administration.
No, of course, the border fence and the walls, they're meant to force foreigners to formal points of entry, where we at least can do some minimal screening for illnesses. But Biden will always choose open borders ahead of the health, safety, and economic well-being of Americans. Number 3, Biden would keep you locked down until at least 2021. And while he's letting millions of illegal aliens flood the labor markets during a recession and bring in more cases of COVID, he'd make sure you're still locked down in your home and your kids were out of school. His allies in politics and the press, who are messaging Biden's plans, they've spilled the beans.
If you're not going to stay home and you're not going to wear masks in public, we have to enforce, and we will.
This could have been a very different summer if we'd had a better lockdown, a longer lockdown.
Any concern that you've gone too far in any way with the stay-at-home restrictions?
No.
And Biden hinted at this himself just last week.
From the beginning, in my view, the president had given us a false choice. He said that we have to get back to work and also deal with COVID. You can't get this country going again unless you get COVID under control.
You know what that means. And number 4, Biden's lockdowns would obliterate the recovery. The cost of taking the country back into lockdown would be staggering.
This idea of more lockdowns, people just throw this out willy-nilly, forgetting the enormous human cost as well as the enormous economic cost. The country can't take that, and there's no reason for that.
Biden's lockdowns would also lead to more health crises. Even with a limited temporary lockdown, things were bad. And imagine if it had continued through most of the year. Last month, the Washington Post reported that suspected overdoses nationally jumped 18% in March, 29% in April, and 42% in May. And lockdowns around the world are leading to a resurgence of things like tuberculosis, HIV, and malaria. The New York Times reporting that a 3-month lockdown across different parts of the world and a gradual return to normal over 10 months could result in an additional 6.3 million cases of TB, 1.4 million deaths. In the worst-case scenario, deaths from malaria could double to 770,000 per year. Number 6, Biden would use the pandemic to ram through far-left policies. And of course, the old saying, never let a crisis go to waste, would be Biden's pandemic motto.
And I truly think that if we do this right, we have an incredible opportunity to not just dig out of this crisis, but to fundamentally transform the country.
Oh, there wouldn't be a country left. Of course, we all know what that means, ramming through every socialist wish list item. Empty out the prisons, single-payer health care, government-paid child care, the Green New Deal, guaranteed basic income, and of course, reparations. And while President Biden went about transforming our country, he'd of course get a free pass from the media. No antagonistic interviews with Axios, no aggressive questioning from Jim Acosta, just a lot of gauzy profiles about his vice president and how she's a first and she's also a global superstar. This laundry list of horribles should make all Americans think about voting for change, think twice about it, in November. Now, given the violence in the streets and the leftward turn of the Democrats, we know what Biden will bring isn't the type of hope and change that Obama promised 12 years ago. It would be far more radical, and now there's far more at stake. But they hope their lies and their misdirection will make you forget about the unparalleled prosperity that we enjoyed before the pandemic hit and what we're on a way to seeing again under President Trump. Would you rather go back to that normal or experience the new normal that Democrats are giving us a glimpse of in California and in New York and on the streets of Chicago and Baltimore? In Joe's new society, you'll be poorer, less safe, less free, and your kids will be less educated. And at that point, a virus will be the least of our problems. And that's the angle.